everybody. Welcome and thank you so much for being here on a Saturday morning for our final day of the Delphi Economic Forum. My name is Roberto Alvarez. I'm the Executive Director of the GFCC. If you have not heard about the GFCC yet, you should. The GFCC stands for the Global Federation of Competitiveness Councils. We are a global multi-stakeholder organization with corporations, universities, government agencies, and private sector councils, chambers, and alike as members. We have a footprint in 35 countries today, and it's a pleasure to be in Delphi again with all of you and this amazing group of people. You know, ChatGPT writes better than 90 to 95% of the folks who I know. That's amazing. That's what I think. And we're here to talk a bit about how not just generative AI, but technology is changing, reshaping business models, jobs, skills, and society at the end. And I have an amazing group of people here with me today, starting with my friend and colleague, Chad Evans. Chad is the Executive Vice President of the Council on Competitiveness in the United States, where he has been leading the National Innovation Commission that the Council has put together yesterday. Council President and President of the GFCC, Deborah Winston-Smith, who is here, has been leading that initiative and also leading things in the GFCC, coming with a series of new proposals to spearhead innovation, the innovation economy in the United States. To my right, I have Isabel Gil. Isabel is the president of the Catholic University of Portugal and one of the most entrepreneurial, I would say, university presidents, because you are now university presidents. Otherwise, I would say one of the most entrepreneurial people who I know in the world, who has been not just driving the university, but changing legislation in Portugal, advancing institutions to allow for innovation. We have Venetia Kusia, a friend and partner, I would not say in crime, but I would say in different projects.
And crime.
Yeah. The GFCC was proud to partner with the Delphi Economic Forum and the Council on Competitiveness of Greece. We deployed in Athens and Ioannina in 2022, the GFCC Global Innovation Summit. Venetia, who comes with an amazing background in business, used to be the CEO of Manpower here in Greece in the region, and now leads the Council on Competitiveness in Greece. And to my right, Harry Margaritis, who is one of the smart Greek tech leaders that I've met in my life. We just met, but I was telling you that I had several incredibly smart Greek friends in the US, entrepreneurs who built companies, were at research, business, and it's great to see that you have returned to your country to join one of our members, Piraeus Bank, that's advancing transformation and a variety of things. So to get us started, and we'll make this very conversational, Harry, how do you see this? How do you see technology? For sure, we can talk AI, but digital technology or technology at large. Changing the bank, changing your business model, changing what you need in terms of talent, your operations.
Sure. Chad, of course, when you told me yesterday you were going to ask this, I texted ChatGPT and I got the answer, so I know exactly what to say now.
And you know, I have some questions that ChatGPT prepared to ask you. So
to be honest, I did try it, but I wasn't happy with the answer, so I'll give my version of it. Obviously, technology is fundamental in banking. It has been transforming banking significantly. The way banks operate today is completely different than the way banks operated even 5 or 10 years back. In order to stay competitive, a bank today needs to offer the same experience the one gets by using any application of the tech giants. The quality of service needs to be superior, the instant gratification needs to be there, everything has to be personalized, you need to constantly improve your offerings, your capabilities. We used to have banks operating from a single channel maybe 50 years back. Now you have banking as a service, you have embedded finance. So the world of financial services is actually being significantly disrupted. And in order for banks to stay competitive and be able to provide the customer service everyone expects, they need to become technology companies themselves, actually. And the skills you require to do that are so wide and so extensive. And the biggest problem for a bank today, I think, is finding the right talent and the right expertise to do the level of change that one requires, especially for incumbent banks that have been around for some time and they have accumulated legacy. In my bank, we have a massive transformation program underway. We are delivering hundreds of technology projects every year. And to be able to do that, we use our own workforce. And of course, we have augmented our workforce with hundreds of people from other partners. And we have teams working in different parts of the world for us today, in India, in Poland, in Italy, in Spain. And how you coordinate, how you manage those teams is not a trivial activity. And also, you see that even we are 2 years down the line of this program, and there is a need to upskill these teams as well. So because the innovation cycles now are so short that if you neglect to do that, then pretty soon you'll have another wave of big changes ahead of you that you won't be able to cater for. And in all that, you need to make sure that your own people, your team remains engaged. They're not overwhelmed with the pace of change. They see their own career, their own future. And again, this is also not trivial anymore. So some of the things we're doing is we are investing significantly in upskilling programs. As I think as most organizations on the planet, we're also looking at new ways of working, offering flexible workspaces, the ability to work remotely. A lot of our effort goes to social responsibility programs as well. One of our programs called the Project Future has allowed us to train young graduates and make them able to find employment. I think we've done this for more than 2,800 young professionals since 2018 when the project started. So these are all the things I think you need to do, apart from, of course, the hard technology aspects of having a right architecture and so on and so forth.
Two quick follow-up questions here, if you could reply to this very quickly. You said talent. Is the main challenge related to soft skills or hard tech skills? And the other thing, you said upskilling. Do you do that internally, or do you have partners outside? How do you address that? I think
that's a great question, actually, and I've been thinking about it a lot. And I think everyone is focused on hard skills, I feel. But I think this is changing now, because the importance of soft skills is becoming even more prevalent. The ability to adapt, the ability to self-manage, the ability to problem solve is not something you can easily teach, or you do a 4 days boot camp and then everyone can problem solve. And this is, as we see this new wave of technologies, these generative technologies become mainstream, people that have the soft skills will actually be better positioned than the people that have a very niche hard skill at the moment. And then for the training, we do this with both internal and external partners, of course, because the range of topics is extremely wide.
Okay, I'll leave a question for you, not just for you, for everybody, because I want each one of you to come up with an actionable recommendation that people in attendance here could take home and do something, right? But we'll be back to that. Before I transition to Isabel, you represent to me in this conversation Harry, like the demand side of talent. Isabel's in the supply side, leading a university that is on the rise. But there are two quick comments before I transition to you. One, you were in banking. JP Morgan there was a research note just a few days ago saying that generative AI, or the buzz around that, it's responsible for 53% of the growth in the stock market recently. That's a lot, right? So the whole bundle of companies that are in that space represent 53% of S&P 500. That's 1.4 trillion US dollars, just around this because of the expectations about that. And the other thing, you said one thing, the shortening of life cycles, right? And if you want to check this out, in the GFCC we published a report on future skills. We mapped not just the skills themselves, but solutions around the globe. But when we did that, and that was in 2021, there were things that were not around, like generative AI. So Isabel, you are an innovator, you are driving change. How is your university and how are you working to address the things that Harry has mentioned, for instance?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for having invited me to come to the forum. It's a pleasure to be here and to have this discussion. And I want to say that listening to Harry, one of the things that universities need to do, of course, is to be partners of the transformation that the entrepreneurial sector, the banking sector, industry is overcoming. We're not doing something that is apart from, universities are not silos, but they are partners. And the entrepreneurial sector is our stakeholder as well. For instance, you were talking about JP Morgan. Well, JP Morgan, that transformation, they hired the top roboticist at Carnegie Mellon to lead the AI division of JP Morgan. And so, I mean, it shows that the science that is produced at universities is absolutely crucial also for the development and the growth in our economies. Now, how are we adapting our supply and the way we train our talent to the needs of companies? You were asking earlier about technology. Technology has brought on an institutional disruption. It has brought on a disruption in our users. So the students that come in, they come with skills and they're technologically savvy in a way. So they expect us to provide a value added that is not simply instrumental. And it has changed also, or it's forcing a change upon the way we teach, so the methodologies and the pedagogy. As far as the institutional transformation is concerned, it has just, as Harry was explaining about the bank, and especially for multi-campus universities like my own, it has brought on much more efficiency. It has brought on collaboration, stronger collaboration amongst the diverse campi, and it has forced or inspired us, I don't want to use the term forced, inspired an organizational renewal. And that's probably the hardest, I mean, I've had several hardest tasks in my life as president. This is probably the most difficult one. It's called Project Athena, honoring the Greek goddess of wisdom. And basically what we're doing is transforming the way our several functional strands operate. Nationally, bringing people to work together from the diverse campi. Many of them didn't know each other, wouldn't talk to each other. And it's a cultural transformation. That is extremely difficult in a university that has a strong reputation, strong legacy, and adding on to that, the regional differences. In my country, Portugal is a small country with very strong regional differences, and bringing those differences to bear in a unified work environment is certainly a challenge. And bringing on, of course, new additions, new divisions, a transformation office, a happiness office, bringing all this into the university, and it's not common. You know, because universities are usually organized in very traditional ways. HR, finance, and that's it. So it's a complete overhaul, and it's the most difficult, I would say the most difficult task at hand. It has forced also upon our faculty members a way of rethinking the way they teach. And problem-based learning is absolutely essential to bring into the professional world when the graduates leave the university, the ability to resolve problems, to continue to adapt to changing working environments and changing needs, to be flexible, to be able to integrate organizational change. And the integration of transformation and change is absolutely crucial, especially in our uncertain world. One of the first areas where we made this methodological revolution was medicine. It's, of course, a new venture, transforming from the traditional way of the lecture hall in teaching medicine to stackable units organized around problems. This is a model that was initiated in Canada years ago. It is creating a revolution in the way that medicine is taught because it's based on the assumption that doctors are not fully trained when they finish their 6 years of college. They will continue to need to adapt, to evolve, to learn. And for that, we need a methodology that allows them to continue on this path. And this is enlarging to other areas because this will allow them to work collaboratively and continue to adapt, and this is precisely, I think, that what companies need. Having said that, I want to say that there was a big buzz when COVID hit that the traditional university, the in-presence learning university, was doomed because we were all going to move into the cloud. Professors were going to be substituted by servers. We would have there would be a way of allowing students to self-learn through the computer. That is a hype. I mean, in-person learning will continue to stay. Technology is an add-on that will boost the way graduates are educated. And mind you, our function is not simply to provide useful skills for life. That is essential, but it's also to provide wisdom and to create better citizens.
That's good. Isabel, just for people to understand, how many campi or how many campuses do you have?
We have 4 campi in Portugal and 1 in China.
That's
in
amazing.
Macau.
And one thing that you mentioned, so this whole effort about transforming the university, how do you train faculty? How do you train faculty to feel familiar with this series of new tools that I'm struggling with that? I bet a lot of people may be struggling with that. How do you address that?
Well, when COVID hit, we all adapted immediately, but that was sort of emergency remote learning, so it's not a real transformation. But during COVID, we created a new unit for digital learning and for pedagogical renewal, and that is offering training for faculty in technology, digital skills. It is allowing the different schools to transform curriculum. We hired also a tech unit to create digital courses. So digital designers, digital educational designers are a scarce good, let's say. It's very difficult to hire digital designers, but they are the ones who are then transforming the content that faculty provides into online videos and programs that the students can access. So we created a unit for this. And I also want to say that we believe that entering into the university, students need to have skills or basic skills in coding and programming, which my generation doesn't have and that we should be trained in. We don't want them to be illiterate in that. So from this year on, we're providing a boot camp of Python for every single degree, from philosophy to bioengineering. Everyone will do the boot camp of Python.
Yeah. So we did a lot of things with the universities in the GFCC. So we researched a few years ago the toolkits that universities have around the globe to advance innovation. We mapped 52 types of tools. We compared that across dozens of universities, and we analyze how those tools are evolving. And tools can be tech transfer offices, venture funds, joint research centers with the industry. Those are like just free among the 52, right? And we're seeing that universities are more and more becoming blurred. So you mentioned this thing about the boot camp. I'll be back to you later because I know that you are doing that with partners outside the university, and I also want to comment that with you, Harry. But Venetia, Isabel just mentioned this notion of using AI and that we need critical thinking, we need, let's say, certain skills, we need research, and that we cannot rely only on algorithms, right?
Only on our?
Algorithms, right? So you've been working with workforce development, empowering people, selecting, training, and now you lead the Council on Competitiveness of Greece. How do you see all those things playing out in the economy, in the world, and in Greece? And also, I have a question about your new book in a minute.
Okay. Good morning, and thank you for the invitation. And it's a constant, effort and a constant pleasure to talk about skills and society for the last 25 years, for me at least, and not finding any success, I would say. We just turned the discussion on technology, and with the technology progress, we think that we have solved the mindset and the mobility of the culture. We are in a constant crisis. It is a silent crisis. It is nice to talk with the tool of technology, I will repeat, but this crisis, together with the demographic problem, especially in the Western societies and in Greece and Italy, it is really very, very hard, and it will go accentuated. We cannot find the people with the right skills, with the right soft skills, because as already said, the hard skills can be trained. Those with similar studies, let's say, and they can be trained in small courses, in short courses. The mentality to change and to look after change, both in employees and employers and the third party, has not done a great progress. Employers, they require something because they know that they have to change, but they point at universities that they should provide the right candidates. They point at the government that they should provide the right institution. What about them? And I'm not talking about big banks like Piraeus that they have done things. In Greece, we have two Greeces. The Greece of the big companies and the best workplaces to work, and the majority that they are small companies. They try to find their way. They think that money is the only resource that they need, instead of being, systematic and with the right people and with the right idea and the mentality of becoming an entrepreneur. Because the fact that I cannot find a job, although they are scarce, doesn't make me a correct entrepreneur. Not even if I have the right idea. Not even if I have the right business plan sometimes. I need to be the right staff for entrepreneur. And I need to believe that complementarities will build a team that we together going to create a competitive product or service. What we do, and one of the things that we try to do with competitiveness councils is to form the academia members and to try to break the silos, because all together academia, not only academia but education partners, because you cannot become only through university a competitive human resource. In Greece, we do have the problem of high school and vocational training. And according to European ranks, unfortunately, we still rank among the countries on the bottom. So we cannot empower our industries with the correct technical. And on top of that, I would say that in a way to become flexible and mobile in thinking encompasses all parts of the society. In policymakers, educators, citizens, the third parties, non-for-profit, etc., all of us. This doesn't mean that all of us should think separately. And this is one of the things that Compete tries to do, either by signing memorandum of understanding, so to sit around the table in small groups, to let the other members get to know each other. If you don't know the other, you start feeling afraid or dubious or whatever. After you know each other, trust starts being built. And understanding that by breaking the silos, you can create bridges. Because we also have the migration. And as we have talked yesterday, migration is an opportunity, not a threat. But migration, that it is well planned, to have the right mix of high skills, of technical skills, or whatever skills you need in a country in order to become competitive, and then have the tactics and the policies to integrate them and then to engage them, to stay and become part of the society.
Venetia, do you agree with Harry when he says that maybe the bottleneck is most related to soft skills than hard skills?
Definitely. Definitely the soft skills, because in my mind, apart from learning to be a good member of the team or learning to be an analytical and then a problem solver or learning to become flexible and not offended when something is against you, learning to seek for the change as a tool for promotion, this is part of the family, is part of the society. The way we bring up our children is part of the school, and it is not one day. And Alvin Toffler had said that the illiterate of the 21st century is not the one who cannot read or write or know algorithms, is the one who cannot unlearn and relearn. This is what we need to understand. This is the kind of soft skill. I have been listening to various courses, I'm sorry, but it is a skill that teaches you being a team player. It is not, you don't sit around the table, okay? It's an effort. It's an effort. Instead of 0, it's 1. Okay, it's an effort. We play a game, let's say, around the table, and I lose. I remember my mother, when I was younger, many years ago, she said, Venetia, you need to learn how to lose. If you lose, you cannot be like that. I mean, it was a constant lesson. And it was a life lesson. But to start with, we need to start by self-diagnosing so that we are self-confident in order to be able to understand and admit what are your flaws and what you are good at. In order to cooperate, you need to have a life that guides you that, and the most important person is you. The others will be the helpers. So I definitely agree with Harris. Okay.
So, I come from a distant country called Brazil, and I lived several years in the US. And one of the biggest differences, for sure, there are lots of differences in terms of infrastructure, investment, blah, blah, blah. But a big difference is that in a place like Brazil, you don't train leadership. you don't train soft skills in a structured way. It's very, very hard to find that embedded in all systems in society. And I do agree with you guys. That makes a difference, really training soft skills in a structured way.
Soft skills can be trained, don't make me wrong. When you are in a company, a good company, they are going to send you, if they think that you have a career plan to become a leader higher and higher, they will train you in soft skills in INSEAD or in other very prestigious schools, as Manpower was doing, to become better. But if you have a characteristic, let's say in a scale on 1 to 10, if this characteristic is 3, it will not by this kind of training become 9. Don't fool ourselves. If I have a characteristic which is 7, yes, I can make it to be 8. And definitely, as we have heard during November from the Gallup president, we need to focus only on the positive skills that we have to make them better. This was a huge lesson in the hall at that time, and it is a huge lesson for us.
You brought something very important to the conversation, Venetia, that connects with things that Chad is leading. And that's the notion that you don't have one economy, you have different economies, right? Not all companies will be able to hire Harry. Most of companies don't have access to this talent, maybe. So, Chad, you're leading the National Innovation Commission in the United States with Deborah in your steering committee, looking economy-wide, right? Thinking about the future of the US economy. How do you see this issue related to the skills landscape? One of the goals that you have set is to increase 10 times the number of people going into the innovation economy in the US. So how do you see the skills landscape changing? How do you see that affecting productivity in the economy in the world's most competitive country?
You know, Roberto, as I sit here, well, today obviously having heard from Isabel and Harry and Venetia, and who maybe we were cyclically connected. You mentioned Toffler and change waves. My opening point was really going to be about, as a society, yes, in the U.S., but everywhere, we really are sailing in uncharted waters with massive change waves coming, actually already arriving. And what do I mean by that? Harry mentioned this at the very beginning of the panel. Technology life cycles are shortening, and technology deployment is accelerating. You mentioned ChatGPT. In addition to its impact on the stock market just over the past few months, when it was released, I think it was version 3 at the end of last year, within 1 month it had 100 million active users. It's the fastest growing commercial application in human history. So that means life cycles are shorter. That means employers, workers, students, educators, trainers are going to have less time to adapt in this new world. It also means our foresight into the future of what is needed in the skills landscape is going to be harder to predict. So in an era of waves of this technology disruption, rapid change, dynamism is going to be a critical competitiveness differentiator and an advantage. Earlier this month, there was an Economist article about touting some of the advantages or the successes in the U.S. model. I think they called it America's astonishing record. We can argue how astonishing it is or isn't, but you're right, America has a lot of strengths. But a lot of that comes from the flexibility of the labor market, and the article goes on to mention there's so much news about layoffs in the tech sector in the United States, Alphabet firing thousands. The fact is, within days and weeks and months, most of those workers were finding new jobs or they were starting new businesses. The article contrasted that with the EU, where, frankly, folks are still negotiating layoff strategies. You know, the dynamism is not there. So are we on the eve of a disruption? Are we really at the dawn of a major discontinuity? We have he's passed away now, but a well-known American columnist named George Will once warned that the future has a way of arriving unannounced. Well, we're witnessing that right now. Who knew ChatGPT was coming in December? Maybe some people did who are in the field. I know I didn't. I know my parents didn't. I know my nephew and niece didn't. The genie's out of the bottle, it's scaling rapidly. ChatGPT has completely upended what the EU has been doing on AI regulations for 2 to 3 years. It's irrelevant now, obviated in weeks. So you talked about ChatGPT. Let's stay on that. There are many other technologies, and maybe we'll have a chance to come to that. But it's already demonstrating. We were already worried before ChatGPT that automation and robotics were going to be replacing routine skills. I think what ChatGPT and generative intelligence, large language models are showing us is that there is the potential for non-routine jobs and tasks to be replaced. ChatGPT is writing jokes, is writing consulting reports, it's writing poetry, it's answering really tough questions, it's scoring the highest percentages on tests already. It creates its own computer codes. So the change is just unbelievably dramatic. There was a study released just last month that looked at what might be some of the implications of large language models, and it notes just in the US case, you sort of prime me to talk a little bit about the US, but I think this is probably true in a more broader sense. 80% of the US workforce today could have at least 10% of their work affected by or impacted in some way by large language models. But around 20% of the current US workforce might have as much as 50% of their work impacted by large language models, ChatGPT, generative AI. And some of the occupations that might be most exposed, they're broad. Interpreters and translators, authors, consultants, financial quantitative analysts, accountants and auditors, legal secretaries, public relations specialists, nonprofit think tank leaders. So all of these AI models are just flourishing and exploring. So I want to talk, and I know our time is short, but what are some of the implications? And I mean this because are we going to find ourselves potentially on the cusp of the long heralded, never quite achieved next generation of productivity? A Wharton School professor recently posted in the Harvard Business Review, he ran an experiment. He asked ChatGPT to develop a course syllabus, grading criteria, student evaluation models, lecture notes. ChatGPT did that in seconds. Not months, not weeks, not days, not hours, seconds. And that's only going to accelerate. The scarier, or perhaps really interesting thing is, what if it's not just ChatGPT, but ChatGPT enveloped by or embedded in other software platforms? So then you begin to think the implications are truly vast. So how do we come to grip with that kind of change? And that's really what I wanted to bring to this panel. The writer no longer needs to write alone. Mm-hmm. The computer coder no longer needs to code alone. The data analyst doesn't have to research her data alone. This is a new kind of collaboration that did not exist 30 days ago. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. So this really raises serious questions about the future of skills and what we need to do to teach and educate ourselves, much less the generations to come, about how will they succeed in an environment of continuous disruption. And I don't mean disruption necessarily always in a negative sense. I think disruption potentially has positives. But we all have to come to grips with the fact that we're not on the same technology S-curve. We've jumped. We're on a new curve, and I guess the question is, how are we going to deal and live on that new curve? Not just because of things like ChatGPT. We're already overwhelmed with the tsunami of data. We're already overwhelmed with changes in medicine, life sciences, the future of biomed. So we're seeing all sorts of potential ways that we might trigger really a transformation in humanity. Just as the printing press allowed the masses to learn what only the few had learned before, and just as that same printing press brought on the Enlightenment, the Reformation, the modern university system, our current world, what's the next world going to look like? And I don't think we know that yet. There's an economist in the United States named Ev Ehrlich. He used to be the Undersecretary of Commerce during the Clinton administration, and he raised a really important point 20, 30 years ago, he predicted, not thinking about AI or ChatGPT, but just thinking about the future, that the future would go to those who possessed an education in the liberal arts. They would rise to the top in this new world. Why did he predict that? He thought that there would come a time when it would not be so much important to, know an answer. The important skill would be to ask the right question, and then upon receiving the answer, to know what to do with it. The wisdom that Isabel mentioned earlier, that she's preparing the future generation for. That would be important. So it appears that we've actually reached the point now where we are in this age where we will depend upon and we will need to focus on amplified human creativity to really use tools like ChatGPT, much less CRISPR and many other technologies we could talk about to really propel human society.
Thank you, Chad. There's one thing that you highlighted that's critical because we always adapted as humanity to technology change, but there's something new now, speed.
Yeah.
We never faced the change in such a hurry, right? How are you, Harry and Isabel, in a very quick way, addressing the challenge of speed?
The best you can do, I guess, is be open about the concerns you have. Seek help. You can't hope to solve everything on your own. Definitely, you can't also hide your head in the sand and wait for others to sort out the issues for you. So, for us, we are working with the industry. We are working with the academia. We are preparing for the change in the nature of work because the change inevitably is coming. I see it in my area already. I mean, developers, coders are already using it. And we are seeing amazing productivity benefits. And I think these technologies will impact every other, most of the work, as was said before. I'm optimistic by nature, so I think humanity, we will find a way to use the technology prudently, the way we have done in the past.
But we got to be open.
We got to be open.
Isabel, how do you do that? How do you address the challenge of speed at the university? But also, if you could very quickly comment about this blurring in your partnership to develop, let's say, digital skills.
Okay. So I would say the question of speeds, rather than speed, I would say that it is important to implement in the university, which are traditionally, let's say, slower in enacting change, a culture of transformation. And that's different from change, because change is short-term, transformation it's something that occurs mid and long-term. So that's what we need. And for that, speed needs to be reflected upon. You cannot change just simply by dint of a trend that happens. It's not, that's why COVID was important. We're not going to move into the cloud immediately. Change needs in institutions needs to be reflected upon. So we cannot fall into the trap of speed. We need to be flexible to integrate change, to integrate into our models of transformation. Now, I want to respond briefly to something that I know. So I'll just pass it on.
No, but you have a chance. So yes. Let's do one quick thing that is from each one of you, one recommendation. What would you say to business, to policy, to industry, to university? Each one of you, just for us to finish.
A proposal is from occupations market to become skills market. There has been a very nice study from Royal Bank of Canada and has come up with 6 clusters out of all these hundreds of occupations, because what it matters for employees to move within and between jobs is the skill. So we need to come down to see which skills can be used in what others. And second, to talk about my book, is that we need to find the common concept, let's say, to understand the other in order to communicate. This is the glossary.
Okay, go from occupations to skills, the focus.
Occupations to the skills, not what is
Yep.
your job, but what are your skills.
Chad, one recommendation that you would give.
That's hard, Roberto. I think what I would say is maybe be careful with the hype. I shared a lot of data.
Yep.
But frankly, 11 years ago, Frey and Osborne at Oxford predicted that 47% of all jobs would be obviated by automation. We're nowhere close to that.
Be cautious.
But on the other hand, I saw this morning, Boston Scientific's robots have been coupled to ChatGPT and can respond to verbal commands. That's an incredible advance in just weeks. So that can be a positive. These could be robots that help people, that can guide you in tough terrain or help the disabled. They can also, lacking an ethical framework, become very scary, dangerous tools.
One recommendation, Isabel?
We need to reinstate the culture of trust between universities, policymakers, and business.
Working class actors. Harry?
I'll go with Venetia's skill decomposition of the jobs. I think jobs need to be decomposed into skills, and organizations need to start thinking which of those activities can be augmented, which will be replaced, which need to be enhanced further with human intelligence.
I have 3 recommendations. 1, let's embrace transformation. I'm getting that from you. 2nd, we should not fight, but we should leverage, engage with technology. It will happen. And 3rd, as you all said, we need more partnerships. We need more conversations like this. We need to work together. Thank you so much for being here.